Hi everyone, this is Mindy Egan for Honeybee Stamps, and in today's video I'm creating this fall greeting card, and the inspiration for it is coming from some plants that I recently purchased. I'm actually going to start my card by doing some hot foiling, and I am using this fall foliage hot foil plate. So these have a few sentiments on it. I didn't know which one I wanted to use, so I grabbed Hello and Thinking of You. I have some Hammermill cardstock, and I'm just placing this champagne glimmer foil down on the cardstock so the shiny side is up, the pretty side is up. Then I place the hot foil plate face down, and I'm holding that down with some tape just to make sure it doesn't shift around when I run this through my machine. Then I'm taking that whole piece, flipping it over, and I hit the timer button on my Glimmer system. Once that green light is solid and stops blinking, I can disengage this, put on my shims, and then I run this through my Platinum 6 die cut machine. So when I carefully peel up this tape, I have some beautifully foiled projects. These plates can be a little warm to the touch, so you just want to make sure you're just kind of careful with them and set them off on the side until they cool. Now I'm taking the coordinating dies, holding that in place over the sentiments and die cutting those out. Now I have sentiments ready, and I'll choose one later on once I work on my card. I'm using the Beautiful Blooms stamp set. There are 2 floral images. I'm going to use the largest one, and I'm going to use the coordinating stencil to color it in. So what I like to do is stamp this in like a really light gray or light brown ink first, just in case I want to go for a no line coloring look. So I'm just stamping this twice in a light gray onto some 80-pound white cardstock. I'm going to leave the stamp in place in case I want to go back over the top of it with some black ink. Now I'm just placing the stencils over my image, holding them down with my magnets from my Make Art station. And the first layer is the leaves. So I used light spruce and then coming in with medium spruce to add a little bit of that darkness right to the part that's closest to the flowers. Then I brought in the second layer of the stencil, and for this I am using some Sandy Beach ink, so it's a light brown. Now each stencil is labeled at the top on what parts it's going to color in, whether it's leaves, the flowers, so just keep in mind that you can always tell by looking in the top corner. This layer mainly had some of the fall leaves and twigs, but there is one leaf up top there, and I wanted that to be green, so I'm just going to bring that light spruce and medium spruce back in real quick to color that in. Then I'm going to come in with craft ink, so a little bit darker of a brown to add that shading and add some contrast and dimension to my image. The third layer colors the center of the flower and then also some of the other branchy pieces. So the center of that flower I did in that light brown, and the rest of these on this the third part of the stencil, I'm bringing in with faded brick. Now I moved on to the largest flower and I started with wild lilac. And I'm going to bring in edible eggplant, and that was a little bit darker than I expected. So that really kind of took over, but I'm still rolling with it. Now, these colors, like I stated, were all kind of inspired by some plants that I just recently purchased. I purchased a purple, yellow, and orange. And I thought, they look great in front of my house, so why not put them to work on a card? So it really just goes to show that you can find inspiration anywhere. Now, for my yellow flower, I had started with a light yellow, which I think was like a lemon drop yellow. And then the darker color, I'm using prickly pear to add in that contrast. There's also a stencil that's going to color in this flower down towards the bottom. And for that one, I went with that light yellow. But then I also brought back in that faded brick, and wow, that is a beautiful combination. I kind of wish I would have used it in the previous flower. After I finished up adding all of my color, I really liked the no line look, but that edible eggplant, that really dark purple, kind of took over the lines a little bit. So I placed this back in my MISTI, and I'm going to ink up the image with intense black ink. This is one of the reasons why I left the stamp set in the same position, is that if I did want to stamp back on top, I could, or I could have left it with that no line look. But since that dark purple really kind of took it over, I thought adding the black lines was a nice finish. I'm using the coordinating die to die cut this out. And then I'm going to add these foam dots behind my panel. And if you haven't tried these from Honeybee Stamps, they're really cool. They have these little tabs, so it's really easy to remove the backing from those foam dots. So I place that down in the corner onto some white cardstock, so I have a lot overhanging. Then I'm going to trim off with my scissors. Now, I wasn't going to add any more to this, but there was just a lot of white space up in that top corner. So I saved that piece I cut off, added foam tape or foam squares behind it, and then placing it in the top corner. And it's just enough where it's not overpowering the card. So once again, just trimming that off. And then I added some of those foam dots behind my word that I had hot foiled. So I just have a beautiful foiled hello here that I'm adding down towards the bottom. And now I can add this to a piece of ivory cardstock. I'm grabbing some gems out of my collection, and these kind of have, some of those colors have like a fall tone to them. So I'm adding a few of them above my sentiment and below my sentiment. And they already had adhesive on the back, so I just need to add them into the spots that I wanted. So that finishes up the card project for today. The supplies used today will be linked down below in the video description. Thanks so much for joining.